Everyone, and thank you for joining us for this next edition of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's Business-Led Recovery Campaign video series. These are meant to provide insights and best practices for our members across the country to accelerate our recovery out of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a pleasure to have with us Tina Lita, who's the CEO of T&T Supermarkets. Tina has been the CEO since 2014 of T&T, and she's also one of the co-chairs of the Canadian Chamber's COVID-19 Pandemic Recovery Leadership Council. Tina, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Tina, we've definitely turned a stage right now into a new phase of the pandemic. We have vaccines accelerating. Businesses are looking forward to making this the last lockdown. Provinces are implementing their reopening plans, and Canada Day is not too far off in the horizon. You've really been spearheading a lot of work, both as part of the COVID Recovery Council and also just in your company day to day to have the virus, mitigation measures, as we call it, to make the workplace safe. So as companies plan ahead for that reopening in this new phase with having to introduce modified measures to instill confidence, what do you think are some of the top measures that they should be aware of?
Well, Mark, I certainly hope that this is going to be the last lockdown for us too. And I have our T&T business has been open since day one, but I really look forward to all the businesses opening up. And it's important to note that we are not totally out of the woods yet. And so the COVID-19 prevention measures still have to be in place to get people back to work and comfortable coming back into an office setting or a work setting. And those measures have changed over time. And certainly what's great is that we know much more about it. First and foremost, I think that all business leaders needs to start with a determination to keep COVID cases down in the workplace. And there's three top things that I would recommend. The first one, and luckily we have access to it now, is vaccinations. You want to encourage as many colleagues as possible to be vaccinated. Number two is masks. Masks carry the day from the beginning. It is so important to keep that in place. Right now, most Canadians have only had their first shot. There have been cases of breakthrough. We do and are still seeing the variants affect our workplaces and our communities. So I would say keeping the mask policy in place when people are gathered together or in meetings together is still critically important. And I would recommend masks that are made from polypropylene, like a surgical mask, versus one made by cloth. I would also say that you don't necessarily need to upgrade to an N95 mask because it's hard to breathe when you're working an 8-hour shift with something so tight. But getting to a polypropylene made mask and keeping that policy in place is the second thing I would recommend. And then lastly, I am very conscious about workplace lunchrooms. This is the one area in workplaces where people take their masks off and they are eating. So the measures on social distancing, keeping the tables apart, putting in partitions where it's relevant, where you still need some space between people. We're coming into the summer now. It's very possible for some companies to put in picnic tables in the back. That's very helpful too. And then also, if you need more circulation, open up the windows or put in a portable HEPA filter at the door to keep the air moving. The lunchroom is the single place in the workplace, I would say, is the most high risk because that should be the one time where you have staff without their masks on. These three things will, I hope, be impactful in keeping COVID cases down in the workplace until we all are able to get our second shot.
Thanks, Tina, and that's great advice. And really, you come at this from a really sort of authentic and genuine spot, having been a real leader in the Canadian business community. And your company hasn't missed a beat. You've had your workplace going right from the get-go because you are an essential business providing food out and feeding Canadians every day. One of the things that a lot of business owners know at a theoretical level is important is communication. So whether that's to staff or to your customers, given you have both an office environment that you're joining us from today, as well as consumer-facing businesses, what are some of the lessons that you've learned about how best to communicate in a factual way so as to increase the confidence and safety that people have in the physical environments?
Yes, Mark, you said it just right. Communication has been so imperative for us to get through COVID safely with our colleagues and in a customer-facing environment. We communicated constantly internally and also to our customers. You have to take the COVID-19 conversation away from the water cooler um, into center stage. It's got to be a conversation that is led by the CEO, that is disseminated down into every manager, and it has to be a conversation that is okay to have very openly. And so, part of our success in building a very trusting workplace and a community is to help educate on everything we knew about COVID. And by the way, in the early days of the pandemic, we didn't know that much. We had some insights from what was going on overseas. We brought those insights in, we applied them, we shared what we knew and admitted when we didn't. And you can't assume that every staff, and TNT, we have 5,300 people. You can't assume that everybody is reading the news all the time. So we would always take the key points and to share that very proactively, helping to educate and inform our employee base, and then also share with them what did that mean for us in terms of people policies, in terms of how we were going to change the way we work. And then we extended that to communicating with our customers as well. So we were committed from the get-go to be transparent about our COVID cases, and then empowering our customers with that information so they could decide for themselves, what they felt was safe or unsafe in a time where, we don't know that much about the pandemic, right? That was in 2020. Now we know a lot more, but you need that constant communication flowing in order to build trust between your customers and your colleagues. And for us at TNT, that's gone a long, long way.
Well, and I think one of the things too that's really interesting about being a business operator is that you have countless touch points with your employees, whether that's staff meetings, emails, the water cooler conversations, the lunchroom conversation. And we're at a point now in Canada where we're starting to plateau a little bit on the first dose distribution, but we are seeing the second dose wave, if I can call it that, starting to pick up steam, which has been fantastic news for businesses. What is the role that you think businesses can play, particularly in helping with that vaccine rollout? I mean, there's a risk, I think, for some of the small businesses that are watching this. They think they have to have a vaccine clinic, but there's so many other ways for them to play a part as companies in getting those vaccines into arms as soon as possible. So, what are some of your thoughts on what companies can do in that regard?
Yes, I for TNT, we have really taken a very active role in encouraging all of our staff get vaccinated, particularly since we're an essential business and facing thousands of customers a day. But we were very clear about that expectation from the get-go, provided again the education that people needed about the different vaccines. We did so in different languages as well, because we felt that that helped our employee base. And we even went as far as having our HR team support our staff of different ages or of different language capabilities to help make appointments for our staff that may have struggled to do so. So the government has done so much in terms of getting the vaccines here. And now I think businesses needs to step up and really put our weight behind supporting vaccines. Because I'll tell you, it works. At TNT, we are at 91% of our colleagues being vaccinated with their first dose, and cases have just dropped off a cliff. It is absolutely effective. And when you have that effectiveness, when you can share with your team that we are 90% vaccinated, that brings a whole bunch of release to every person's safety concerns. And it helps, not only is this the right thing to do from a civic point of view, from a public safety point of view, but there is absolutely a productivity gain as well. There is absolutely an economic gain as well. And that's what the council's work is all about, is to promote the economic recovery coming out of COVID-19. The vaccines is a critical part of that. And every leader should do what they can to, again, take the conversation to the front, encourage it as much as possible. Take a selfie video of your vaccine experience, share your symptoms, post-vaccine symptoms, like in a very open and authentic way. And I think you're going to see that will really help business recovery. Getting the vaccine, or whether somebody is vaccinated or not, cannot be a taboo conversation to have. It's got to be front and center so that all of us take care of our staff as to the best of our ability.
Well, Tina, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us. I mean, I think hearing that you have 91% of your employees vaccinated is really inspiring, quite generally, for companies to be able to hear. And I think actually for, Canadians as a whole, I mean, we're sitting right now, as of the day we're doing this recording, in the sort of low 70% range, but there's no reason why we can't bump up that first dose number even so much higher than it is right now to be able to accelerate our return to, life as we, used to know it. So thanks very much again for making the time with us. And I would encourage all of our viewers to check out these resources and more at www.chamber.ca. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Mark.